Welcome to a radical discussion of independence, free will, liberty, and the left-hand path. This is Damonosophy with your host, Paul Frederick. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. And welcome, friends and fellow Damons, to another episode of Damonosophy, where we are still fighting for liberty and the left-hand path. Today, my guest is Danny Stygion and the cast of his new film, The Goetia Diaries, an independent Houston, Texas supernatural horror film. I don't know if I got that right, but we'll talk more about it. The IMDb says, vlogger Richard Deacon investigates a black magic and the summoning of King Solomon's 72 demons in his current series, The Goetia Diaries. So, hey, welcome everybody.
It's good to be here.
Thank you.
It's good to see you all. I haven't seen you all since we were filming.
Yeah.
So why don't we go? Well, let's go around and everyone introduce themselves and who you play or what your role was in the film. And Danny, let's start with you.
Well, my name is Danny Stygion. I'm the director, and this is my wife, Brittany.
Hi. Okay, so I guess I should go then. So I got talked into doing the part of Janie Black, who does the tarot card reading with Richard Deacon, I guess kind of early on in the film.
Please go ahead, lawyer. Okay, go ahead. I play the part of Soren Parlow, and I'm supposed to be an expert in demonology.
And I'm Richard Deacon. I'm the vlogger that is doing a deep dive on the Goetia Diaries.
And most of you all know me. I'm Paul Frederick. And in this film, I play the role of Trevor Main, who is an occult podcaster. I know that's a real stretch, but there it is. And it's really exciting. So before I end up just talking about it, Danny, tell us, what's the basic story?
Well, the basic story is it's about a vlogger named Richard Deacon. He has a channel about the occult and conspiracy theories, and his current project is called the Goetia Diaries, which is the Goetia is a practice of conjuration of demons.
Yeah.
And it's presented in a found footage style.
Awesome. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the found footage. And when you say found footage, that's like Blair Witch Project. Like the basis of the film is the bits and pieces of it were found from real documentary or whatever style. So yeah, talk a little bit about that. How you came to the decision to make the film.
Yeah, it's discovered footage, and it's presented by his fiance. It's kind of presented in that way for budget reasons. And just I'm a big fan of the genre. I feel like it can give you a more personal experience of horror that a lot of more polished Hollywood movies can't.
Yeah. Like I said, I can only I think of the Blair Witch Project when you think of that format of stuff. And I just remember when that movie came out, it just blew people's minds.
Yeah.
It's like I think, I don't know, is that probably the first found footage type film?
I think Cannibal Holocaust is considered the first, but Blair Witch is the one that really put it out in the map. And a lot of people back then, a lot of people didn't have internet, I think. So they didn't know it wasn't a real movie or a real story when it first came out, which is kind of hard to pull off these days.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, at what point did you decide, because All right, so let's go back. You do a lot. You've been doing a lot of other stuff. You've been like active in the Houston scene for like many years with fetish photography. You do a magazine, Cynical magazine, and you've been involved with putting on like some of these like fetish balls and stuff like that happen.
Yes.
So, and you're very, you do great work with that, and you're very successful and well known around. So, at what point, where did you decide in all of that that you were going to make a movie?
Well, I've always wanted to make films since I was a teenager. I just kind of got sidetracked in the photography and making videos, and eventually I wanted to start a magazine, and that I started a magazine in 2010 called Cynical. But in my mid 30s, I just kind of revisited my original goals. Like I wanted to make films, so I started making some short films. One was with Jay called Solitaire, and then the second short film I made was called Curse of Witches with my wife Brittany, and then I just kind of, I think once I hit 40, I said I need to get this done or going because getting kind of late in the game. So yeah, we wrote a script. We started a Kickstarter campaign and raised some funds to buy the equipment we needed to shoot it. And then we shot the film over weekends over the course of about a year and a half.
What was your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge is just handling a lot of things that I guess bigger productions have, like a sound crew and just more people on deck to help. So just trying to hold the boomstick and set the camera and try and direct actors, doing everything at once. It's a lot. And just scheduling, just working with everyone's schedules. That thankfully everyone has been real supportive on their project and donated their time to help make this happen.
And you're doing all the editing on it?
Yes. Jack, my friend Jack, he started to edit on the project, but he got busy with his main job. But he's going to help out at the end and try to help us with the final color grading and sound mix. So it's kind of a co-editing job, but I did most of the editing, yes.
And then so you said there's a Kickstarter. Is that still going on?
No, I think we did that last year.
Yeah, I think it was like beginning before all the filming.
Yeah, it was like a 30-day Kickstarter, and we raised, I think, like about $4,000. So the budget of the movie is about $4,500. So.
Oh, okay.
Which is like nothing on a big Hollywood production.
But it's pretty significant. It's pretty significant to get that kind of support for something like this, because it's pretty unique. It's like, so a lot of independent filmmakers, you see them starting out in this kind of genre. They go towards the zombie genre is very popular. Way to get started. So why didn't you go like that direction, say, versus you went kind of this direction with the occult? Is there something that drew you more that direction than other possibilities?
Yeah, well, zombies are kind of everywhere these days, and I'm just personally interested in the occult. I try to write a script about things that I was interested in or knew about already. And then, the resources that I have and the type of movie that I'd want to see, because I don't think there's many movies that are kind of like this, like the Goetia Diaries. Yeah, I guess that's the main direction reason why I went in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like really unique. I mean, this is like the kind of movie, when I was younger, God, I wish someone would make a movie. Why don't people make movies like this? So it was really exciting for me to see it happening and to be a part of it. So Jay, let's hear from you. How did you get involved with this whole scheme?
Scheme. I've known Danny for several years now, and as he mentioned, he said he was going to create a short. He wanted to do a short, and he asked me if I wanted to participate in it as an actor. And that's something I've always been interested in, not professionally, but on the side. And I think we had a lot of success with that. You know, we did that in the hotel room in 10 hours or something, or 11 hours, which was pretty remarkable to get that done in that period of time. And then when Danny approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to take the lead in this film that I'm doing?" I said, "Of course." You know, I like your style. I like the way you direct things. I like the way you approach things, and also, you know, you're a good friend of mine. So it was a pretty easy choice to say I'd like to work with you.
That's great. So, and I remember you and I did a scene together. And you know, my experience with these kinds of things go like way back. Like I took in the 90s, when I went to school, I minored in film studies and just had some real, amateur experiences with it. So it was really exciting, like kind of getting into that mode and realizing how much how much I'd retained of it, and how much it's like, oh, this is like kind of familiar territory. But then the next thing I noticed is like working with you is like, I'm like, well, this guy's like really good. He actually knows how to act. And I was like immediately really intimidated by it. And I remember we went through it, like I had to go through everything like several times. But so do you have any, have you developed through this process? Do you have any kind of internal sort of strategy that you use to approach it?
That's more praise than I think I deserve. I appreciate it. I looking back on some of the scenes, I'm like, maybe I would have gone with a different choice. But I do appreciate it. I did enjoy our scene together. I think it turned out really well. I think it's almost like a retrospect type of thing. Like I figured out the character more as we went on. And I felt kind of earlier on, it was kind of feeling it out. But, when you film over 18 months and you're meeting people's unique schedules and you're fitting these things into really short timelines, I know you didn't ask me if that was a difficulty. I'm throwing it out there. And then like internally, it's, you just want to have it appear to be a natural conversation, right? You see some actors, some maybe, I don't want to say subpar films, but people who maybe have less experience, and you can almost see them kind of waiting around, like I need that person to finish their line so I can say my line, rather than having this kind of reactive process where it appears to be a very authentic conversation. And in some cases, you can kind of make it feel that way. I would kind of counter your praise by saying when you were talking about what you were an expert in, had expertise in, that was kind of a natural conversation for me, because you were teaching me something as we were going through that. So it made it really easy to have that appear more authentic, I think, than maybe some others.
It's funny that like trying to act naturally is like one of the hardest things, and you only really have to try and do it a little bit, and see a little bit of yourself to realize how hard it is. And you realize when people say, oh, he's just playing himself. Like people like to do Denzel Washington. Oh, he just plays himself. And it's like, number one, no. Number two, you realize how hard it is to be able to do something like that. It takes so much work and experience and talent and all these things. And you really like it just going through it, you have a renewed appreciation of the professionals, right, who make films at the Hollywood level, that people do this like, so effectively, is just like really impressive. And it's easy before you know that, and you have even that tiny bit of experience. It's so easy to just dismiss, oh, that movie sucks, I hate that director, blah, 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 so and so can't act. And it's just so easy to dismiss things. But you realize after you go through this that even the crappiest, most low budget film that you've ever seen in your life, you realize, so many people worked so hard on this that nothing that's happening in this is really just an accident, right? It's like everything that occurs in it is, there's thought behind it, there's intention behind it, there's some kind of story behind it, that's meaningful. So I can say that's one of the things I really appreciate about getting to work with you all in this project. So lawyer, we need to hear from you next. So what's your angle? How did you get wrapped up at all this?
I first met Danny through a cynical shoot. He contacted the shop that I had and wanted to do a spread, and I've gone to his cynical ball and really have enjoyed myself. And so I've always appreciated and admired his work and the quality of his work. And when I was approached to see if I was interested, I didn't hesitate, because I know that he would, I trusted in the final product that he would produce.
And so then I also have to kind of put the same thing to you that I did to Jay, that when we got together, for the scene that we were in, and we worked together a little bit on it, I realized, oh wow, this guy really knows how to act. I was really intimidated then. So I have to ask you, what is your background? What is your experience with this? What is your strategy? Tell us where you're coming from.
I actually have no acting background at all. This is the very first time that I've been acting. I actually have no experience. I was actually intimidated by all of you being in this situation. And the thing that you said about acting natural is so difficult. One of the things that Danny did for me, which I really appreciated, was the lines that I'm saying when Deacon comes to see me are lines that he picked from interviews that I had. And while that would have been really natural for me to just regurgitate the things that I've said in interviews, I don't know why it was so difficult and so challenging for me. It was just I think it has to do with like the situation that you're around, and the cameras and the light and then people behind the camera, and that whole situation is really intimidating. But I saw the scene and I'm happy with the way that it turned out. But no, no experience. I just sort of step outside of myself and think about what people criticize and what people look at, and then sort of go from there. I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and I was telling him that I get to have the screener yesterday, and I was like, I'm really nervous about it. I know I'm just going to criticize myself up and down. And he's like, we are our own worst critics. And I've always hated that line because I don't believe that to be true. And I was telling him, because we can give each ourselves grace because we know where we come from and we know our capabilities. I'm like, well, people say that, but when you actually meet your worst critic, who is not going to give you grace, who does not know your capabilities or your background or anything, then you realize that you're not really your own worst critic. But yeah, we had that conversation. But yeah, no, I was just happy to do it, and like I said, I have no background, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so you do I follow you on TikTok, so I see a lot of the videos that you do on there, and so you have some cosplay background too, right?
Yes, I do. I follow you as well. Yes. So as far as I guess that's the only acting really that I have is on TikTok, which it always seems like it isn't really worth mentioning because it isn't acting. But the process that I go through is, and a lot of cosplayers don't do this, is that they will take a character and be like, okay, this is how Johnny Depp played this character, so I'm going to wear exactly what he wears and act exactly like Johnny Depp. And I don't like that. I kind of like to take the character away from Johnny Depp and be like, okay, if I was cast in this role, how would I do it? And so every character that I portray, it's always my own version of that character. While I do use their lines, I try to critique certain things that I was just like Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter, that I was like, he's not really showing Mad Hatter's disease. He doesn't have the tics and the twitches, and I think that that's missing. And so I try to add my own version of what I feel was needed, because I don't like to just copy what someone else is doing, and it's appreciated.
Yeah, you're already like you can already see that you've thought about this like 10 times more than someone who's never gone through this kind of experience before, and I think it really shows. It really shows in the final product.
Thank you. It's because Danny offered me this, and he put trust in me. I thought it was important that I just didn't show up and just say my lines, but rather sort of dissect the character so that even though parts of it were me, that I go into it sort of like a fully fledged out character, because I felt like because I only have 2 scenes, I don't have time for character development. I have to kind of be completely fleshed out. And again, because Danny trusted me, it was important for me to be able to deliver for him.
And I have to note here, so you're also a Houston personality. You were the man behind the Wild collection, correct?
Yes, me and my business partner.
Yeah. So I mean, for those who don't know, the Wild collection, and stop me if I'm not explaining this correctly. The Wild collection was a shop in Houston in the Heights area that featured curios, and how would you describe what the Wild collection was doing?
That's exactly what it is. It was when I first came up with the idea for the Wild collection, I pictured some of my favorites, which would be Oscar Wilde and Edgar Allan Poe, and I was like, what if they were to have tea together? What would their surroundings look like? And so that's how I developed the look of the Wild collection. And I also, all my life, I've been very fascinated by superstition and what that does to the mind and how it can physically manifest itself. As you know, we can create our own magic. And so superstitions and religion were always really fascinating to me. And so I wanted to be a place kind of like the world where it's a mixture of superstition and a mixture of religions, and have them all sitting side by side and coexisting, and in a more harmonious way than we coexist with different mindsets here in the world. And that's what I tried to develop, and I was pretty successful at that.
Oh, excellent. So this is reminding me, and maybe this is a question that we'll all have some thoughts about, but this film deals with the concept of demonic possession, is one of the themes in this, and so Lawyer, you'd given we were having a great conversation about our ideas about demonic possession. Can you share a little bit about what you were saying about your experience when you were younger?
Well, I don't know how far to go back. Some of it can be a little embarrassing. I grew up Catholic, and so if any of you all know anything about Catholicism, it's, being demon possessed is like, it just sort of happens in the religion. It's interesting because it almost seems like the only people, and this is what led me to atheism, is because I was so entrenched in Catholicism that I was like, I don't want to get demon possessed. And then I started noticing that only Catholics get demon possessed in movies and in stories. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's something there that I don't want. And so that's sort of how it started. I first watched the movie The Exorcist when I was 10 years old, and I watched it like a documentary. And if you recall, during that time, when it first came out, people were saying it's based on a true story, and this events actually happened. And so it really messed up my young Catholic mind, and I still have a lot of residue over certain scenes of the movie, even though I know better now. But that's sort of how it sort of started. And then I started sort of seeing different movies because I'm really fascinated by the subject of demon possession and how it's possible, but not in the way that people think it is. How certain diseases and conditions can bring hyper-religiosity and certain traits that are seen when somebody's demon possessed. And sometimes when I'm watching a possession movie, I often feel bad because I'm thinking, could this have been mental illness? and because the family is so religious that they are torturing this woman or this man, what have you. But so when I was talking to Danny about any possession movie, was that whenever people know that it's going to have a possession in it, everything is centered around it. And Danny didn't do that because it's centered around a lot of other things. The possession is sort of like a side note where a lot of times people are like, it's a possession movie, that's the climax. It's all about the possession. And because of the budgeting, I was concerned that certain tropes would be pulled out, which you don't want to pull out those tropes because it could be compared to the masters like The Exorcist. And so I'm glad that the movie sort of stayed away from that and sort of went in another direction with the possession, just so that there isn't that comparison, because then you will always have people be like, oh, I recognize certain things about this from this movie and they did it better. And that's not done in this film.
So Danny, do you have any comment on that?
Right. I agree with Lawyer. I mean, the king of possession movies would be The Exorcist, and it would not be a good idea to try and mimic what they did. And I kind of like the idea of, playing with the idea that is it all in the characters' heads or is it real too, by not showing too much.
Okay, there we are. We are live for the second half of my interview with the director and cast of the Goetia Diaries. And so now I wanted to talk to Brittany Stygion and your angle on all of this. I recall from when we were shooting the final big ritual sequence that you demonstrated acute knowledge of the arts of tying people up. Could you talk a little bit more about your background and what you bring to this?
It's a skill that's come in handy quite a bit, actually, more than I thought would, coming out of a dungeon. So I have a fondness for rope or shibari. Rope work was something that I picked up when I was a dominatrix, and like I was saying, it's come in handy quite a bit in the most unusual times, I guess. So either like being on the river and tying tubes together, or in this scene, helping somebody be tied up. I guess through the movie, I've been more of like support, even though I got talked into doing a scene. And I think I can add to the fact of the nervousness and anxiety of going in. But I really did lean into like what Jay said of like being yourself and just the reaction to like, how would I react in the scene? And that made it a lot better.
And so you've done modeling and stuff, right? So you've been on a stage before?
Yeah, so I always find myself getting put into situations. It's not something that I necessarily seek out. Modeling, I guess sometimes I don't think of it as modeling in my mind, as more of like creating images. So I love fashion and I love makeup and creating different looks and experiences within like photography. So to me, it's not just like a picture of like, look, I'm feeling myself and looking cute. I mean, that happens sometimes, but it's more on that creative aspect of I want to create an image that's like intriguing and has a lot of elements to it. And that's kind of how, before I was even with Danny, in a relationship, I had seen some of his photography years before, even before I was in the fetish scene. And I just loved his eye of oh, it's on your shirt right now. The girl in the kitchen.
No,
Oh, you can't show it, can you? You have to like, yeah. Oh no, it's not gonna pick it up. Oh, there it goes.
There.
Well,
Sorry.
that's gone.
Oh. Anywho, so it's an iconic photo that usually gets stolen on the internet to make memes. It's like a girl in the kitchen and she's all in bondage. And I I just remember seeing that photo and I was like, wow, like even though it's black and white, it has like an era feeling to it. And then years later, I found out that it was his. I sent it to him and I was like, look at this photo. He was like, yeah, I took it. I'm like, ooh. Yeah, I don't know. I go on tangent. Sorry.
No, that's great. I mean, you have that talent for that, for like you have an eye for things, you know? Like some people have an eye for fashion, some people have an eye for shapes. And Danny is the same. Danny is like that too, because I was thinking I guess to share a little bit about my background with how I know Danny. Um I think it was around 2004 or so. I talked Danny into doing photographs of my band as Modius X, and we went out and met him. I can't remember where it was, but he like took us around to these different places. He took us into one was a public restroom somewhere. I'll say that. And
Good location.
right, and he also, you know, this is the thing. He knows about lighting. Like not everyone who you work with on that really understands lighting, but that's like one of the real key things to making a picture look good. I mean, there's only so much you can do with, you know, Instagram filters, but he had these lights and he was setting up all these lights, and that was my first clue. Wow, this guy, I think he knows what he's doing. But some of the photos that came from that we ended up using them on an album cover, but then a couple of them ended up becoming iconic like band photos that we ended up using for decades, you know, or a decade at least after that, because I mean it was just right on the money. So it's like, and that's what I'll say about this film too. So I'd gotten back a hold with Danny, I don't know, a year or so ago, to see if he wanted to take pictures of our band again, because we were like coming back and trying to do things again. And Eddie came over. Eddie brought all this gear and all these lights with those big umbrella type things, and you're like, oh wow, this is really serious. I mean, he makes you feel, you know, we're like, you know, 40, 50 plus old men in the suburbs now, and he's making us feel like we're, you know, like we're come on Vogue, you know, like, and and he makes you feel like you're in Hollywood. And so then you know, and then then the movie thing started happening after that. And I'm trying to tie this back to the film, but what I've seen of the film, I haven't watched the whole tester of it yet. But it's like the images and the promos that have been coming out for it. It's like every scene is like it's like a painting. You know, it's like a complete, a holistic like image. And what it reminds me of as a filmmaker, and you know, you know, take this for what it is. I think of Kubrick. I think of like Kubrick, because Kubrick would do that. He'd do like a whole like the opening scene of A Clockwork Orange. I think everyone on this call has probably seen A Clockwork Orange before. How it all opens up with the four droogs sitting there and just that burn and just a real slow, like, you know, pan out on. It's like a painting. No one's moving in it. No one's doing anything. Everyone's completely still in it. And Kubrick is known for these completely like posed like shots that are like a painting. And so it made me think of that, like just a holistic thing. So all that being said, then Danny, maybe you could comment on that. How do you see your style? What are your directorial influences? All that stuff.
I mean, I definitely bring what I know from photography to the composition and framing of the shots for the movie. I've been doing photography so long, I don't even think about it anymore. I just kind of see things a certain way when I'm framing, which is kind of one of the reasons why I wouldn't want someone else to be the director of photography on a film of mine, because that's really important to me, and I enjoy it. Coming up with those solutions as far as framing and lighting. Favorite directors definitely would be like people like David Fincher, Stanley Kubrick, Christopher Nolan, John Carpenter. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I love movies, and my wife knows, because I have a room just filled with movies. And as far as found footage, I mean, Movies that I think are the best in the genre would be Blair Witch, The Possession of Michael King's a good one, Paranormal Activity, the first one. I try to take a little inspiration from some of those films in making this film. And I definitely try to present it in a subtle way. We're using practical, I guess, effects for most of the movie. And trying to stay away from cheesy things like jump scares and prosthetics and all that.
And that's something that I really like about it, is that you also have a respect for authenticity, an element of authenticity in it. And I think of I think it's Robert Eggers, who just made Northman and The Witch and stuff like that. And it's like, well, he stands out because of the authenticity.
Yeah, we
Because,
just saw that. Yeah, it's a really great film, The Northman.
yeah. And, this is another thing. It's like for years and years, those of us who were into, into the occult, into left-hand path philosophies and stuff like that would be, there's all the movies, right? There's the movies that everyone likes, but you're always like, there's, they always get things wrong. They always have some influence in it or something in it that makes you go, oh, well, they didn't really study this. They're just kind of like pulling pulling some influence out of it, some symbol out of it or something like that, and just kind of mismatching it. They're not really worried about it. But I feel that like what you started putting together, it has that authenticity. Can you comment a little bit about that? How important is the authenticity?
Well, for example, there's some groups on Facebook about the Goetia that I've joined recently to help kind of learn more about it and promote the film. And from posting about it, there's a lot of support and interest in the film, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we've done our best to present the Goetia in an authentic way. I spent a lot of years reading the best books on it by Stephen Skinner, the book by Curley and Matheson, and there's another one I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me, but
Extensive book collection.
Yeah. So yeah, we've done our best to present it how it's supposed to be presented, with the actual incantations and the correct tools that you're supposed to use when you do these rituals. And hopefully people recognize that, the people in the community, and then people that are curious, well, maybe they'll explore some of these books.
Excellent. So, Jay, is that a picture of Akira behind you?
That's actually Roland Deschain from the Dark Tower series. Stephen King is my favorite author, so that's him right before the Dark Tower.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like an Akira picture, but that's pretty interesting too. Is that a big influence for you?
Yeah, I think that's. Now I need to look at some Akira art. Now that you mentioned that, I love that as well. I think horror has always been important to me. Like Child's Play when I was younger had a big influence on me. Probably started my love for this type of stuff. I don't have the knowledge of the Goetia and practicing magic and things like this. So I've clearly always been interested in it as a hard buff. I guess speaking to like the authenticity, there were times when I was filming that perhaps maybe I wasn't taking this stuff as seriously. Not that I was mocking it, but Danny and Brittany would get a little frustrated with me, not in a mean way. I'm not disparaging them. They're like, hey, we're working really hard to make this authentic. Really kind of don't take this too lightly, and that kind of helped me understand a a little bit more about it and how important it was to them to make sure that this is represented the best that it can be and taken seriously.
Excellent. And lawyer, how about you? The question of authenticity. You kind of maybe talked about it a little bit, but could you expound on authenticity? What do you see the role of that in these kind of films?
Well, it's vital because authenticity will give you a uniqueness, and also I think it shows respect to your viewers, that you're taking something serious and that you are exposing something. I think I always, whenever I think of authenticity, I always feel that you're basically giving somebody a view of your insides and how your mind works. And so authenticity is vital in things like this.
Indeed, very profound. So Danny, what's the next steps for the Goetia Diary? When can people see it?
Well, this month we're going to finish up with the final sound correction and color grading, and then I plan on the first to submit it to Film Hub to get it processed, to get it onto platforms such as like Amazon and Tubi, and then we're going to be producing our own physical media like Blu-rays and DVDs, and distributing the film ourselves. I've heard many horror stories about distributors taking advantage of independent filmmakers on their first film, where basically you sign away a lot of your rights. You never see a dime for years, and it's like I'd rather that we just put it out on our own. We still control it. We might not reach a massive audience, so word of mouth is really important in those communities. The found footage. There's found footage communities. Oh, sorry.
Kingsley agrees.
Yeah, the horror film communities, found footage community, the occult community. I think word of mouth is really important in those communities to get more, I guess, presence of this movie known. But yeah, so that's the next step.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have experience with that kind of stuff in the film realm, but I remember I was doing music and putting out independent CDs like in the 90s when that was the only way to do it. Getting a physical CD into a store somewhere was the name of the game. And there were a lot of like Dutch East Indie was one of them, and there's these other like independent distributors out there, and you would like bust your ass to like try and get a deal with them, and 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 um and that was hard too. I mean, all the people that you had to call back then to get anything done, club promoters and, labels and blah, 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 hope someone answers the phone and returns your call, and you'd bust your ass to get a distribution deal. And so they'd take like, 120 CDs or something, and, you'd sign some deal for like, 30 to 90 days, like return. And then what would happen is you'd never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And that's it. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, well, they're making money off our CDs. But the reality is what was probably happening is this goes into a warehouse somewhere, it goes into a corner, and that's it. And sometime around 2002 or so, they're like, oh, well, let's throw this into a landfill, or let's like go, take it to the used record stores or something like that. Is more likely what happens. So I'm a big advocate in the DIY direct approach that you're talking about. The internet has just changed just made all of that segment, that third party distributor industry, like really kind of moot for this level of doing things. And you retain the control that you retain over it dwarfs any dream of a slight amount of more money that you might possibly like make off of it, which again, you have to just basically throw away any kind of visibility or knowledge of it to even get to the point where that's a possibility.
Yeah, I've talked to at least 4 filmmakers that I know, and they all said the same thing, that we need to put it out on our own. Because I mean, one of them, he even lost the rights to release Blu-rays and DVDs. I know we're moving into streaming, but that would really suck if we weren't able to do that. So
Right. No, absolutely. Is there going to be a premiere?
I think the plan is just to release it online. We haven't tried to find a place to screen it yet. I know you had mentioned a venue that might be good, a Black Magic Social Club. I think it's
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Black
that might
Magic
be
Social
cool.
Club.
We might do something like that, but I don't think we're gonna try and find like a theater. But yeah, we're still working out all the details on that.
Because the Houston underground scene loves opening video screenings and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a good time, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look at some options, and there's already some festivals that are interested in showing the movie later in the year. So we're looking at all that.
And it'd give us all an excuse to hang out again. I
Yeah.
mean, since it wrapped, it's like we never see each other anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone have any other thoughts they'd like to share?
I guess I would just say that it was a wonderful experience. It's Danny's freshman attempt at a full-length film. I think it really shows that he has a lot of talent and a lot of know-how. As you mentioned, Paul, every kind of piece being like a landscape portrait, kind of being holistic. I was really impressed with his knowledge, and I'm excited to see what his sophomore attempt is. So, anybody who's interested in working with him, reach out to him. I'm sure he'd be receptive.
I think one thing or one topic is just like watching Danny go from every day. And I don't know how long you would set aside, like an hour or two every day, consistently going over and creating different scenes and writing each scene. And I would hear him talking to himself at the computer, having these conversations like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to write a scene right now. Shit. I'm like, okay, all right. And when he finally got a cut and we would read through it together, it's been really cool to watch the whole process, like from the writing to the filming, meeting everybody, seeing these characters come to life. It's just been a really incredible experience. And I think everybody played like perfectly. I have some of my favorite moments, and hopefully after the movie comes out, we'll have like another talk and see what people think. But it's just been incredible. Everybody did a great job. I'm so sorry.
Danny,
I apologize for our dog.
Danny, I'm interested to know, what are you going to do with your time now? With all this stuff. Yeah. Are you going to be shy to go into your next project because you know what all this entails? Or, yeah, what are you going to do with your time now?
I definitely want to keep making films. I'll probably start working on another script, and definitely on the next project. I'll learn from the lessons that I learned making this film. There's some things that I would do differently, and then try to definitely have more people helping on the next one. Someone to at least hold the boomstick, so I can concentrate on the directing the actors a little bit more than I had a chance to while I was paying attention to all the technical stuff. But no, I'm excited, and I do want to say that I appreciate all of you for helping me achieve this goal of making a film. I really appreciate your time and your efforts and everything. It means a lot.
Yeah, and I just have to reiterate two things out of this. One is that Danny does get things done. Danny does what he says. There's so many people who are like, I'm gonna make a movie, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna put out an album, blah blah, and then it peters out and they don't keep the momentum going and you never hear about it again. But like Danny, like and he always has all these things that I've mentioned. It's like he delivers. He works on it. He puts the effort into it, and that's the secret, which I think everyone on this group knows, is you're going to get something done. You're going to have to put effort into it. You have to put work into it to see it through, even at the point where it's like not fun anymore. Especially at the point where it's not fun anymore. So so thank you for that, Danny. I appreciate it, and I know everyone else appreciates it. And the other thing I'm going to say, reiterate, is I want to do another one too. The minute this was done, I was like, oh, that's so awesome. I'm already thinking of everything that I would want to do different if I was ever in this kind of situation again. So, so that's I'm looking forward to anything that you do in the future there.